For more on gaming in Brazil and elsewhere nearby, we welcome Michael Cai, live from Los Angeles. He's a Senior Vice President of Research, Games, and Technology with the consulting firm Interpret. Welcome to the show. Good to see you, Michael.
Thank you,
Let me just preface this by saying that I lost 6 months of my life to a couple of video games, so I can see the addictive nature of this. Let me start with the potential growth of the gaming industry in Brazil in particular. Why is this such a big topic?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on the show and talk about video games in Brazil. It is a huge market. Based on Interpret's GameBite research, which actually studies video gamers in 10 different countries, including Brazil. What we actually found was in Brazil today, in 2014, we already have 58 million active video gamers, and that's 16% growth from 2013, which is very robust. There are a few factors. I mean, it's a huge country to start with, 200 million in population, ranked 5th in the world, and it's a very urban society. 80% of the population actually live in urban areas.
Who's playing the video games? Is it what we think it is? Is it kids, or is it young adults or older adults?
It's a great question. It's pretty much everybody, like in the US, especially with the smartphone and tablets opening up the video game market. It definitely has morphed from only hardcore young adults, especially males, to covering everybody. In Brazil, the demographics of gamers is probably slightly younger than in the US, but still, it's a very wide spectrum of demographics.
We ran a story just before this interview that talked about the number of companies and how much they're earning in revenue, and it looked like there's a couple big companies and the rest were all relatively smaller startups. I mean, where are the big companies that you and I probably know best, the EA Sports, the Sonys, the Xboxes? I mean, do they have a foot in this marketplace? I mean, are they watching this going, look, we can make money here?
Absolutely. EA, Activision, Take-Two, a lot of these large console game companies, they've made a lot of money in Brazil, but also increasingly free-to-play companies like Riot Games, which makes League of Legends one of the most popular games in Brazil and on this planet.
Explain to our audience what you mean, free to play. I mean, I imagine it's free, but it's not really free. It can't be.
Yeah, exactly. So it's free to play in the sense that you can actually start playing the game for free, and a lot of the gamers actually play the game for free forever without spending a dime, because as you get into the game, if you want to get more advanced experiences, you can spend money on these so-called microtransaction items, buy whether customization features or weapons to enhance your gaming experiences. So it actually has been a very popular business model for Brazil.
I'm looking at a recent report here that talks about Latin America. They're expected to be the highest growing mobile games market in a couple years. The numbers, 50, 60% growth per year. I mean, this is something you'd see at a very startup, and I can't imagine that video games aren't new necessarily, but you think about the mobile games market, who's going to benefit from this trend?
I think it's everybody. I mean, it's the big companies that pay attention to the market, as we just discussed, whether it's EA, Activision, Blizzard, or Riot and Tencent from China, but also some of the smaller companies that are local to Brazil. We see this in other parts of the world as well. As gaming becomes bigger, eventually one or two local companies will kind of start making really successful games targeting the local population, and then other companies will join in. So I definitely expect in the next 5 to 10 years, although we don't see it now, there will be very strong local Brazilian game developers that are benefiting from the market growth as well.
Very quickly, anything that you're worried about when it comes to this industry, whether it's theft or counterfeit products or game consoles being too expensive, anything on that radar that you might say, wait a minute?
Well, it's an interesting question because piracy and the gray market has kind of bothered Brazil for quite a few years, especially because the tariff on consoles and console games are so high. And however, in the past couple of years, Sony and Microsoft actually have set up shops in Brazil to make those machines locally to make sure they're a little bit cheaper. So I definitely think in the next few years, it's not just free-to-play games, it's not just smartphone and tablet games, but also console games. They're all going to grow fairly rapidly in Brazil, and the market represents opportunities for all those different business models and companies.
All right, Michael, a lot of hours spent by these young adults or kids on these councils. Thank you for your time and explanation of all of that. Michael Cai joining us from Los Angeles.